Mr. Speaker, the primary responsibility of Congress is to keep our nation safe. However, we are 133 days into the 2015 fiscal year, and the Department of Homeland Security is without a budget. The Department is trying to fulfill its mission under the uncertainty of a continuing resolution set to expire in 18 days. Last week, the Department of Homeland Security submitted its fiscal year 2016 budget, but unlike every department and agency, DHS was at the disadvantage of not having a current funding level for its essential security functions. There is a mistaken impression that the Department of Homeland Security is doing just fine under the continuing resolution. Some feel that if DHS funding expires, no problem exists, since approximately 85% of DHS personnel are deemed essential and required to work. While it is true, frontline agents and officers like those at CBP, ICE, the Coast Guard, and the Secret Service would continue working, they would do so without being paid. Is this fair? To expect these dedicated Americans to put their lives on the line without pay and the ability to care for their families? I think not. And I believe the American people would agree on the unfairness of this proposal. A greater concern is that the Secretary of Homeland Security has warned us that not having an appropriation for 2015 is threatening our national security. Without a full-year budget, the Department is limited in its ability to advance the Secretary's Unity of Effort initiative to improve interagency coordination, making it more effective in achieving its security missions. It limits the Secretary's ability to implement aggressively his Southern Border and Approaches campaign, and it creates uncertainty regarding ICE's ability to transfer unaccompanied children to HHS for humane treatment and its capacity to detain and deport dangerous criminals. Operating under the lower allocations and uncertainty of a continuing resolution also has the potential of delaying and ultimately increasing the cost of needed procurements, including the acquisition of the Coast Guard's 8th National Security Cutter and badly needed security upgrades at the White House complex to prevent fence jumper intrusions. The refusal of the Republican leadership to bring a clean Homeland Security appropriations bill for a vote delays the hiring of Secret Service personnel and the issuing of terrorism preparedness response grants for state and local governments. This jeopardizes our first responders and other public safety personnel from being fully prepared when responding to a terrorist attack or natural disaster. While I do not question the prioritization of my colleagues on protecting our country, I do worry some fail to appreciate fully the negative impact of inappropriately using the 2015 DHS appropriations bill as leverage to reverse the President's executive actions on immigration policy. If my Republican colleagues believe the President has overreached, then the Constitution provides them a path of action through the authorizing committees rather than an appropriations bill. Mr. Speaker, when we are increasingly faced with the possibility of terrorist threats, I urge the Republican leadership to let this House vote on the clean, bipartisan, bicameral 2015 Homeland Security Appropriations Bill negotiated in good faith last November. This bill will pass the House and the Senate and will be signed by the President, enabling our Department of Homeland Security to continue to protect our country from harm. To do otherwise is a failure in our most basic responsibility as members of Congress. I yield back.